Hi, welcome to Storytime with Dan Booker. Appreciate you being here. And today we're getting down towards the end of the book. I hate to say it. So we've got about maybe 3 or 4 more chapters. So I got to really get on my horse and get the next book going so we can do it. If I don't have it ready, what we'll probably do is we'll kind of read it as I'm writing it. So we'll see how that works. Of course, once I publish it, there will be a lot of changes. So it may not be quite the same book, but let's get going with today's one, which is Preparations. Now that Talbot and Michaela were really moving in a couple of months, there were things to prepare for. Rocky called Frank in and explained the change in town government. Frank, you've pretty much done most of the heavy lifting, getting things done. I think I can move over and return to being sheriff until the next election without leaving the town high and dry. You willing to step up to this office? If you want, you can just stay where you are and have the title mayor instead of council president. Frank was sitting with his chin in his chest, deep in thought. Rocky had set things up well with continuity books in each section, so swinging into the post as mayor shouldn't be a problem. Even if Rocky did go back to the sheriff's office, they could still talk things over and work out anything he wasn't sure of. Yeah, I think I'll feel secure enough to take over. Those books you had everyone make means we can move people around if necessary with minimal fuss. Rocky, you've been a damn good mayor for the short time that you've held the office. If possible, I'd like to see you run again and keep us on the straight and narrow. They shook hands, and Frank went to ensure all his loose ends were tied up before he had to step into Rocky's shoes. In the sheriff's office, Talbot was ensuring that Joe was ready to take over as sheriff. Talbot, I thought you said Rocky would be taking over after you left. I want to go back to run the shop again. Talbot took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He knew this would probably happen. Joe was all right as a deputy, but the responsibility of being the sheriff was too much for him. Joe, I know you don't want to be the sheriff, and I think I know why. Unfortunately, for a short while, you're going to have to be the acting sheriff. Rocky can't turn over the mayor's office overnight. These things take time, and when I'm gone, I'm gone. The place is yours until Rocky takes over. You know I've been trying my best to teach you everything I know. We still got a couple of months before I head out, so I'm going to sit back a little bit and let you be in charge. Now, you've got the smarts to do this. The only thing you need is confidence. And that comes by doing. So, buddy, consider yourself in charge from now on. Michaela was packing whatever they didn't need immediately on arrival so that they could sell their home. The boxes they weren't taking were going to be stored in the basement of Rocky and Agnes's farm home. Larry's things that Morgan had brought in were already stored in a shed there. Also, Talbot's woodworking tools were locked secure in one of the buildings. Since Rocky had a truck, he would be going with them with all they were taking initially while they were looking for a home. Talbot had made arrangements for living above the cafe in a 2-bedroom apartment. The rate was reasonable and the rooms fairly comfortable. Since every piece of furniture they were taking was foldable, the place would be downright spacious. Agnes was over helping pack while Larry and Mary were playing in the nursery. Michaela was worried that Larry would miss his playmate and vowed to return often enough that they'd be able to see each other. Well, she'd also be able to see Agnes and everyone too. The picnics would need to continue. In town, the people were at an impasse and it was frustrating. Everyone by now knew the Talbot family were leaving. To allow them to leave without throwing a big party was almost unthinkable, but Talbot had said they would be back often enough. It wasn't as if they were really leaving. They just wouldn't be sheriff anymore. Still, the town felt that they had to do something, and time was getting short. Frank in the civic council office was working with his team on something they could do. Every suggestion was for a big parade, bands playing and the mayor presenting awards, citations, and a bit of a feed after. Frank had to get them to understand that in this case, it wouldn't work and that this was going to be a small and intimate affair. So far off from what was usual, nobody could grasp the concept. nobody except Mrs. Phelps at the Historical Society. She knew of Talbot's military background and asked her husband for something appropriate. The suggestion of a shadow box was readily approved. Now the question was what to fill it with. Looking over various types, they chose one with a triangle on top for a flag that would be flown over the courthouse and plenty of shelves for items that would remind him of his time there. The Historical Society asked everyone for any pictures or small items that they thought would remind the Talbots of home. Response was enthusiastic and surprising. Many of the items were index cards on which people put a memory of Sheriff Talbot's efforts on their behalf. Sometimes something Talbot had considered a small thing, such as fixing a child's bike, rescuing a cat from a tree, or a dog from a crack in the ice, made a huge impression on the families of those individuals. Michaela also received many cards of thanks for her efforts in nursing the sick, befriending the lonely, and helping the elderly. These would all be placed in the shadow box, along with the small figures that symbolize the town's specialness. Small figure fishing, a cow, several sheep, small buildings of the co-op and general store, as well as others. In the center and framed was a sheriff's badge. Talbot may not have wanted a big send-off, feeling as he did, as though he was letting the town that voted him in down, but he recognized and appreciated the warmth and feelings they had for him and his family. So it was no surprise when he was summoned to the Historical Society with his family. Rocky was standing behind the podium in his blue suit. A small audience was seated in the main room, and a cake decorated with an image of Main Street was center placed on a long table. Instead of a candle, there was a small lantern streetlight. Talbot and family were escorted to the podium, and a listing of all their accomplishments and assistance were read out. Shadow box was handed over, and Talbot noticed that the frame had been autographed by all the important people, including several state officials who he had come in contact with during his tenure. Michaela was presented with a medal for her dedication in taking care of the sick and lonely. Talbot made a short and humorous response of thanks. After the applause died down, the cake was admired and cut and eaten. Rocky escorted Talbot out to help him avoid the embarrassing farewells. Michaela was seated in the front seat with Larry beside her in the car seat. Talbot got in and sat. He didn't start the car, he didn't buckle in, he didn't even move. There was a lump in his throat he couldn't swallow, and the tears that were forming were about to overflow. He reached over and took Michaela's hand and squeezed. She nodded that she was feeling the same way. They went home and waited for Rocky to show up. They had one last load to take over to the snow house before they reloaded Rocky's truck and with a few things they would need to begin a new life in Greensville. Rocky and family arrived, and while Talbot and Rocky loaded the truck, Agnes and Michaela reminisced and cried. The truck arrived at the snow house empty and looking forlorn. They unpacked in silence. Contents filled the rest of the basement. They walked around the snow house with their footsteps echoing over the barren floors. The contents had been moved to Rocky's home in town. They weren't sure what to do with the place. What are you going to do with this place, Rock? I don't know. I hate to just let it go. I don't know, maybe I can give it to the school or something. How's the selling of your house going? Not bad. We're going to hand over the keys right before we head out. Folks buying it are going to do some changes, so they said we don't even need to clean it. Chuckled. I don't mean the thing to Michaela. Was that place clean as a whistle and company ready? He shook his head, and his wife had put so much effort into cleaning a place they were leaving, but it also occurred to him that her pride wouldn't let her hand over the keys to a house anything less than sparkling. Driving back to the two men stopped at the Triple RX for a quick beer. Then it would be time to head to Greenville. Evan once more got a cold ball and the nervousness in the pit of his stomach. The warmth of the bar and the friendly, familiar faces all grinning at him and toasting to his good fortune in a new place just made things worse. Back to Talbot's home, which was no longer his, they filled the truck with cars with everything that remained. Michaela was taking her car, and Larry, Talbot was leaving in his car, and Rocky and family were bringing up the rear. Talbot had brought radios and given one to Michaela and Rocky so that they could keep in touch. Drive up to Greenville was uneventful, and they made it in a couple of hours. They parked outside the Civic Center, and Talbot and Rocky went in to meet the mayor. Now that's it for this chapter. Hold on one second. Let me check what time it is. Oh, hell. Hardly done any. Good grief. Okay, let's do number 2. Let's do a change of plans. Let's get them into town for a minute. Excuse me. Talbot knocked and received a gruff summons to enter. Rocky's backer immediately went up, and he bristled like an angry dog at one who tries to come into his territory. Mayor looked up from reading a paper and recognized Talbot and coughed. "Oh, Mr. Talbot, the council is canceling the offer of simply placing you into the position of sheriff. Town wants to vote in this. There are 2 local candidates. You'd be a 3rd candidate, and as an outsider, I have to tell you, your chances are slim." Talbot paled at the brusqueness of being told he had made a trip for nothing. No apology, no reason other than it was decided already. "Hell, I sold my home based on your promise. I've uprooted my family because you said I had a position here. Now you have the gall to tell me there isn't a job? Where am I supposed to go?" Mayor looked up, surprised at the vehemence of Talbot's fury. "Hey, look, this is out of my hands. People want to have a vote on who we have as sheriff, and they have that right. You can stick around and work on getting elected just like the other 2. If you don't get elected sheriff, well, I'm sure we can find a job for you somewhere around here. In the meantime, I've got things to do, so bye." Talbot had to practically carry Rocky out of the office. His fists were clenched, and Talbot was afraid Rocky was going to send the mayor flying out the window. Downstairs, Talbot told Michaela of the change in plans. They had changed their mind and went to a house they had decided to rent until they felt really situated. It was good that they had gone that route instead of being tied to a home with limited prospects of a job. Truck and cars were unloaded and all their furnishings placed inside their temporary lodgings. Michaela was being very particular about where everything went and how the place should look. She vacuumed the carpets and re-cleaned the stove and refrigerator to her stringent standards. This was going to be their home for who knew how long. It was going to feel and look like home. Agnes went into town and bought several large flowering potted plants and asked where they should go. Michaela thanked her and picked rooms for each. When Agnes returned from distributing them, she saw that Rocky and Talbot had gone to the printers to make flyers for his run for sheriff. With the men gone, Michaela finally let her feelings out and cried in Agnes's embrace. "Agnes, what have we done? No job, nothing waiting for us, and no home of our own, for goodness sakes. And for goodness all along." Agnes held her close and cried with her. She felt so angry at the town that she couldn't stand it. She was tempted to take Michaela back home with her immediately. The only thing holding her back was that she knew Talbot had made a commitment and wouldn't back down until he either succeeded or utterly failed. If he didn't get the sheriff's position, she was sure he'd be able to find a job somehow. He had a family to support. As to finding a home, they had some money from their sale of their house, but they had sold it cheap for a quick sale. Thousands they had collected wouldn't buy a home outright, and the longer they stayed, the less they'd have. Damn this place and their false promises. How dare they hurt people like this? As tempted as Rocky had been to go into the mayor's office and give him a piece of her mind. That would only make things harder on Talbot, though. Talbot and Rocky returned from having signs printed and then putting them up. Talbot wasn't satisfied with what he could afford, but hoped his record would offset the lack of glitz. Rocky brought some KFC for them to eat. Neil was constrained and silent, mostly silent. Mary and Larry were having a heated discussion of their own. Rocky and Agnes helped clean up and said a sad farewell. Agnes and Michaela promised to get together before the week was out, but they needed a little time to get themselves situated. On the drive home, Agnes asked Rocky what they could do to help. Agnes, I don't think there was anything we can do. That will do his best in running, and his record will be his strong suit, but he's an outsider, and the two folks running are close to the mayor. Personally, I think that's what changed things on Talbot's side. Pulled over into a rest stop, both to talk things over and to change Mary, who was beginning to reek. Once Mary's needs were seen to, Rocky sat at a picnic table and pulled out a notebook. Agnes smiled at seeing the notebook come out, since it meant Rocky was working out what they could do. He wrote for quite a while, then looked up. Agnes, what do you think about Talbot's ability as a carpenter? I think he's damn good. That sled he made for Mary is gorgeous. He does the most amazing work using only pegs. I mean, the things he makes are going to last. Those he made for Joe are solid as a rock when you compare them to the ones that Joe knocked out. What are you thinking? Well, sweetheart, I hate to say it, but I don't think Talbot's got much of a chance of running for sheriff. You just got too many things against him. But he might just be able to open up a shop where he sells the stuff he makes. It's all really good quality, and he could charge a decent price for it. Darling, we'll wait to see what happens, but if he doesn't get the position, I want to make him a proposition. He looked at his notes and took a deep breath. I want to sell him the snow house, along with the small outbuilding he has his tools and workshop in. We retain the main buildings the school uses in the built field. Agnes nodded, but wanted to know why not just sell them everything? Well, if we did that, then it would be way out of their price range. Considering I also bought that forested area next to the railroad tracks, I got it pretty cheap, but adding that to the parcel and home makes the package darn expensive. If we parcel it to just the home and yard, he can afford it. He can probably even pay for everything up front, or if he needs to, he can make it pay on installments. I won't quibble about that. I just wanted to keep it affordable so he can get in supplies and open his own shop. While we were out, it was something he was thinking about doing. I really think he needs to focus on that. I also think I may be able to convince him to come in part-time as deputy, since I'll be taking over the sheriff's office tomorrow. I'll be doing it alone, too, since Joe was so heartbroken at Talbot leaving, he wants to go back to his garage. He'll still come in once in a while and give me a break, but his heart's in that place of his. If I had nothing to say against Rocky's plan, it would bring Michaela back as well and keep the four Mouseketeers together. Calling themselves the Mouseketeers had been Peggy's idea when she was included in the group. Heather had no problem being part of the picnic group, but wasn't particularly interested in the rest of their pursuits. She didn't feel comfortable going to other people's houses except for going to Boris's, where she was always warmly welcomed. Mouseketeers had placed bets on how long it would be before they got married. Back in town, they got themselves ready for bed and then sat up half the night. For Agnes, the loss of her closest friend had left a hole in her heart. Only the thought of her possibly coming back and taking the farmhouse brought her any joy. Buck is in much the same position. He and Talbot had become more than friends. They were battle buddies, and while they never served in the same unit, they were both prior Army and workmates. The trust and respect they had for each other ran deeper than blood. Rocky roused himself when he saw Agnes asleep, her head resting on their arms, and Mary asleep in her swing. Carrying them to their respective beds, Rocky went to bed as well. Come morning, Rocky overslept and arrived late to the courthouse. Joe was there and had the morning paperwork filed and the faxes posted. Gave Rocky a rundown of what had happened up to this morning. Rocky, I'm sorry, but I just don't want to be a full-time deputy anymore. It's like when Talbot left, he took part of me with him. Rocky patted him on the shoulder. I know how you feel. Part of me is up there now, too. Okay, that's it. So the next chapter is U-turn. We're not going to do 3 of them today. So this is Tuesday. No, I got to get a calendar. Today is Friday, so we'll be doing the next one on Tuesday. I hope you'll be here for that. I look forward to doing this one. We probably do another 2 first, so we'll do U-turn in the next one after that. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you on our next reading. Be good. Be good to yourself. Bye.